Okay, we are looking at Wallace Stevens today. We're starting on page 1904, and we're looking at page 1905 to 1906 as well. The anecdote of the jar and the idea of order in Key West. And just to recap, this is volume F, the third volume in the series. Third volume in the set, volume F, and you read Anecdote of the Jar and the idea of order at Key West, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have it with you today? Please take your books out. Okay. A couple of questions. How many of you read the poems? Yes. All right. Very nice. Did you really read them?
I read one of them.
You read one. The Anecdote of the Jar. Nice short one.
And I looked over there and I read it.
You looked over the other one. Okay.
I was kind of like,
What did that Anecdote of the Jar seem to mean? What was it about? I got a maybe a plant,
A bird bath. A bird bath.
a bird bath. Okay, a plant, a bird bath. What?
Somewhere on a hill in Tennessee. About a hill.
What was it?
Something about a hill in Tennessee and
A
The
hill in
women didn't run over the
Tennessee?
jar.
There was a what?
The women just run over the jar.
Something ran over the jar?
The wilderness.
Oh, the wilderness ran over the jar, and something about a jar and Tennessee. Yeah, that's pretty much, you got it. You read the poem. Good. Okay. It kind of doesn't make sense. It really kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense at this point. We'll discuss it, and then suddenly it should make sense, along with the idea of order at Key West. First, I do want to kind of, because we're in the last couple of lectures for the semester, we're kind of winding down here, and I want to recap kind of the history of literature, okay, so that you can see where modern literature stands and what it's doing and that sort of thing, just kind of to give you and it's really a short timeline. I mean, it's covers a lot of time, but it's brief. Okay. First, of course, we had like the classical and then medieval that you would have done classical, and you had medieval literature. What's spell medieval literature? I'm sitting here. Is it I before E, or do you break the rule? No, you don't break the rule. Okay. Okay. Now, classical, you're dealing with a lot of structure and order, and it's following, you've got tragedies that follow a pattern of the hero falls and recognizes his mistake and that sort of thing. You have kind of a set, you have kind of a cosmos that's pretty much, I mean, it's not completely united, or you couldn't have conflict, but you have a sense of order. There are kings, there are rulers. When Oedipus kills his father and marries his mother, that was not a good thing to do, right? And so he gets exiled at the end of well, I'm not sure he's exiled. He doesn't actually get exiled until the next play, but he pokes out his eyes and all that. There is a wrong thing, and he cannot be kept in the city as he is because he's done something wrong. So there's this idea that the gods are right, and you have to follow along with the laws of the gods. Medieval literature kind of follows the same sort of thing. There's an idea that there is a unified order, that God is in control, that the planets move, the stars move, whatever, everything moves according to God's will. And so you have, say, Dante's the Divine Comedy, where you have the structure where you've got hell that's in the earth, you have purgatory that rises up as a mountain on earth, and then heaven is above, and it's all motivated by love and God. Now, we then, of course, you move ahead, and we can look at, it's early modern with Shakespeare. Early modern, I mean, we feel like we are in the modern age. Oh, we're so modern today. Actually, early modern period, early modernity, starts as early as Shakespeare and Machiavelli. Okay? You get my approve of my statement there?
I guess the chair's got the breakers.
She's falling out of her chair. I said, modernity begins with Shakespeare. She doesn't like that. No, but really it does. And if you've read, how many of you read Hamlet in 201? Okay, Hamlet. Okay, you know it's like that Hamlet, you know, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler to suffer the slings and snares of outrageous fortune, and blah, blah, blah. That whole thing. Hamlet is trying to decide whether or not to do something. What is the whole play? He's trying to decide whether or not to take a particular action.
To kill the king.
To kill the king, yes. Should he kill the king, who is his uncle, because he believes that his uncle Claudius killed his father, right? Why does he think that Claudius killed his father? Who told him that?
His dad.
The ghost. Now, I don't know who you had for 201 or if you had Hamlet in high school or whatever, but how does he know that that ghost is telling him the truth?
He puts on a play.
Play doesn't work.
Well, it sort of works.
No.
Oh,
Because
a little?
No. Because people tend to miss the fact that in the play within a play, it is the story is about a king who is killed, but who is it that kills the king in the play within a play?
I don't remember, to be honest.
No, it's the nephew who kills the king in the play within a play. So when he performs the play within a play, it looks like, ha ha, I'm going to kill you, Claudius. And then that's when Claudius stands up and says, light, give me some light. Now, so there's no way for Hamlet to know if the ghost was telling the truth from the play within a play, because Claudius could get up and scream for light because he saw the murder done in the same manner in which he killed King Hamlet. The method of murder is the same. The problem is it's also a nephew killing a king. And actually, if you notice, right after the play within a play, Claudius gets up, leaves, and he says, we've got to get Hamlet out of town because he may kill me. So they get Hamlet out of town, and actually he plans to have Hamlet killed at that point. Because, and so we're not real sure what's going on. Okay. Why am I going into all of this with Hamlet? Because Hamlet is trying to decide whether or not it is right to kill a king in a play that is performed in a culture with divine right of kings. God is the one who puts the king in place. Claudius is in place. Maybe he's a usurper. We know he's a usurper because we hear him pray, but Hamlet doesn't know that. So, is it right to kill a king? The ghost may be a demon from hell. The ghost may be a figment of his imagination, although we kind of know that's not the case because his friends hear the ghost, or at least see the ghost. They don't hear him say anything, but they know the effects of the ghost. They hear him go, swear, swear. But there's all of this stuff about what happens after we die. Okay? So, is it right to kill a king, or are we going to throw all of our divine right of king stuff out? Is the ghost real, or is there anything after death? And Hamlet actually says, life after death is the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. Nobody comes back and says, hi, I've been in heaven or hell, and this is what it's like, right? So he says we don't really know. It's kind of the beginning of that falling apart of the medieval world where everything is, God-centered. The church steeple is the highest building in town. Everything kind of revolves around God and that sort of thing. Now we have early modernity with Shakespeare saying, well, we don't really know what happens after we die. Maybe we go to heaven, maybe there's nothing. The last word of Hamlet is, and the rest is silence. So, we don't know. But we've got this questioning, we have the beginning of the questioning of faith, God, order, meaning, and we have the Renaissance that comes along, and the Enlightenment. We have the Age of are now about kind of the place, we're kind of at the age of reason, and the Enlightenment is where we started 202. So everything is based on reason. So what we can know in the age of reason, knowledge is based on empirical evidence, right? We go on what we can weigh or touch or feel or whatever, right? We have huge advancements in science. And this is where we start talking about the ills of society with satire. Satire uncovers the ills of society in order to improve society. It's not this sense of let's pray and fix it. Instead, let's be rational and try to fix it this way. We then move, once we get to the point that we realize empirical knowledge, science, and we have that order, but it's an order based on class and society, social order, instead of something necessarily that is necessarily connected to God. Then we have romanticism. There's kind of a swing, There's kind of a swing back and forth now, because it's all about the mind here, mind and society and all of that. And now here it's more about emotion and spirit and all of that, and romanticism. So now we've got romanticism where we're looking for the sublime, because we realize that reason isn't enough, right? Reason's not going to be enough for us. So now we're looking for the sublime, something transcendent. God in the whirlwind for Job, that kind of thing. So where we had God is central up here, then we're kind of getting away from that. We're going to base everything on what our minds can hold. And then we go down here to the romantic, and then now, oh no, we want something more than what we can reason through. And then now we've got modernism, okay? And that's where we are right now. There was so much hope in scientific achievements. We are at a point with modernism, which is the turn of the century, okay, 1900, around 1900. There had been hope in scientific achievements from the Age of Reason. I mean, we have the periodic table, we have atomic elements, we have major transportation with trains and cars and that sort of thing. There's a great hope that the achievements would lead to a better society, right? Because we had come through this Age of Reason where the scientific achievements would improve society up here, right? And so we can use satire and try to make people realize what's wrong in Ireland or what's wrong wherever, you know. We've got this Marx has been touring around giving lectures. We get the birth of Marxism, communism, that sort of thing. Then we had, what happened, do we remember from last time? 1914 to 1918.
World War I.
Thank you. World War I was from 1914 to 1918. World War I was from 1914 to 1918. Anybody remember what happened in 1917? No. The Russian Revolution. Okay. We might include what happened in the 1860s in America. Huh?
Hit
1860s. Yeah, no, 1860s in the U.S. Not
Civil War.
The Civil War. Thank you. Yeah, hippies were not around there. Okay, U.S. Civil War preceded all this. You want to go back a little farther? 1840s. You had the Irish potato famine. stuff going on in Ireland. You have the growth of the Irish nationalist movement in the early 1900s as well. But in World War I, 1914 to 1918, you had global warfare, which had not been encountered before in the West, really. I mean, this is huge. That's why it was called at that time the war to end all wars. There was so much destruction, and human beings felt despair and anxiety at the fragility of human life. I mean, you have the invention of the machine gun and mustard gas. Warfare is waged in a really in a really unusual way. It's new, so that there's kind of mass destruction. Also, with World War I, you had something that was the flu epidemic. Did I tell you all about the flu epidemic last time? No? I didn't know. Okay. Okay, you remember when we had the H1N1 virus, and now we have, I don't know where the hand sanitizer is in this room, but it's why there's hand sanitizer everywhere. Now, why was H1N1 so scary? It could kill you, and it could be a pandemic. Well, the flu epidemic that they compared it to was the one from 1917 to 1918. Because as the doughboys were coming back after World War I, they were in Europe, but then they were all going back home. They spread this flu all over the world, and so it was a pandemic. There were 20 million lives that were lost in that flu epidemic. I mean, it was huge. People who would come back from the war would talk about their memories of the war, as horrible as they were. But if you asked people about the flu epidemic, they would not talk about it because it was just too painful. I mean, huge percentages of populations died. If you go, like, where my mom and my grandparents are buried, if I go up to the cemetery, there are a lot of graves from 1917. You can go to old cemeteries and look, and you'll find 1917, 1918, there are just lots of graves from those years of even like children and young people that normally wouldn't have died at that age. So it's unusual. I mean, in this horrible sense of what's going on. We also have in the early 1900s the American stock market crash. We had the Depression here. There was a depression worldwide, which is also how Hitler got elected. I mean, a lot of people don't know that Hitler was elected. I mean, they voted for him, and then after he'd been in power for a while, then he was elected. What do you call him? I've lost the word.
A dictator?
Dictator, yeah. What? I can't remember the word, but anyhow. Okay, so because of this. Oh, I thought you were going to answer you were going to tell me, but I couldn't remember.
His name.
His name? Hitler?
His title.
His title.
Dictator.
Like his Hitler.
Yeah.
No, they're called something in German. No,
Chancellor.
Russian.
Something.
No, that's Star Wars.
King Hitler.
Okay. Führer. Yes, the Führer.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
That's
The
the
Führer. Thank you. Okay. So he was eventually, elected permanently in position. Now, because of things like the flu epidemic, the horrors and atrocities of World War I, the American stock market, the worldwide depression, and the fact that we had been coming up to this with this sense of, oh, wow, we can do all these great things. We can travel cross-continent by train now. You can talk to people around the world on a phone or on telegraph at least. In the face of all of that, look at what that technology did for us. It gave us mustard gas, it gave us machine guns. Look at what we did in World War I, that sort of thing. So humanity was facing its mortality. People felt alone. They had lost the meaning of life because you go all the way back to here. And traditional Christian answers are kind of hollow, right? And we're going to really see this when we read Eliot as well. So, where do we get meaning? If society could allow, if society could allow these horrible things to happen, what do we believe in? It seems like there are no rules. There's no structure. So they're encountering the absurdity of life and trying to figure out where to make meaning. What does it mean when all the world goes nuts, right? When humankind is so horrible to itself. So, where do we find meaning? Wallace Stevens enters the scene, and we get modernist poetry, which is trying, or modern poetry, which is trying, he's trying to figure out where we're going to find meaning. You can't find it in some social structure because social structures go bad. You can't find it in God because look at what God let happen. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's what I believe, but I'm saying that's what society believes at this point. So what he does in Anecdote of the Jar, okay, this is a strange little poem, yes. He says, I placed a jar in Tennessee, and round it was upon a hill. It made the slovenly wilderness surround that hill. Okay, first of all, where are we?
In Tennessee.
In Tennessee. Tell me about, like, what is the image in your mind of where we are?
There's a lot of hills going through Tennessee, so it's like a hilly land.
Okay, there's a hill in Tennessee. Is it nicely mowed with a nice road that's been graded and curbs and all? What does it look like? What does he call it? Slovenly what? Yes. The slovenly wilderness, exactly. So you're in the middle of the wilderness, right? What does the wilderness mean? Does wilderness mean?
Middle of nowhere.
Uninhabited. Uninhabited. Do they have elections in the wilderness?
Because you're not going to have people in the wilderness.
Not people in the wilderness.
He's comparing it to
What?
the world.
He's, okay. Comparing it to the world, okay. And is there any order at this point?
No, chaos.
It's chaos. The wilderness is chaos, or at least it's disordered. There isn't any,
But sort
it
of.
doesn't exactly say anything except chaos, right? Or maybe not chaos, but at least there's no statement if it's wilderness, right? There's no meaning in it. We don't get that sense of the transcendent meaning of, oh, I see the beautiful mountain. No, it's just slovenly and it's a wilderness. So what does he do? The first line.
This is a jar in there.
He places a jar. Yes. Places a jar in the wilderness on the hill, right? And what does the slovenly wilderness do?
What does slovenly mean? You rose up to it.
Typically, slovenly is kind of you sit there like this and you're not very well dressed and you probably your clothes are wrinkled. Maybe you got them out of the laundry pile if you're
So
something.
kind of untamed.
It is.
Untamed,
That's where the chaos
unkempt,
comes from.
didn't brush your hair, the grass is not mowed,
Not
it's just
mine.
kind of,
It's there.
just kind of there. Yeah. Overrun maybe with kudzu. I don't know if they had kudzu at this time. I haven't made it to America yet or not. So, but it does what? It makes the wilderness do what?
Rose up to it.
It rose up to it.
No longer wild.
What is the difference between the jar and the wilderness?
Man-made.
Say it loudly.
It's man-made.
It is man-made. The jar is man-made. And he says, the speaker says, I placed it there. It's a man-made thing, and it has form, but I mean, it's just a jar, like a canning jar or something. The wilderness rose up to it and sprawled around, no longer wide. The jar was round upon the ground and tall and of a port in air. It's dignified. It's just a canning jar or something, but it's dignified, right? And so it took dominion everywhere. What does it mean to take dominion?
Completely takes control.
Power or something?
Yeah, it kind of runs the wilderness. It is the thing that brings order. How does a dumb old jar do this?
It doesn't.
Because
It
it's a
doesn't?
poem.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor? What's it a metaphor for?
I have no idea.
She has no idea.
The man.
What?
The man.
Of the jar as a human and the nature and all that.
And
Okay, here's the really, okay, what I normally do is I would give you a, okay, here's what we'll do. Everybody think about a tree in your head. Think about a tree from when you were about 6 years old.
Okay.
Go back to 6-year-old memories and think of a tree.
The giving tree.
What?
Nothing. I was being.
You lived in the desert, there were no trees when you were 6.
No, just ignore him.
Okay. So, do you have a tree in your mind from when you were about 6 years old?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to just, in your notes or somewhere, it's not for a test or anything, just jot down 5 words about that tree and how you saw it when you were 6. I'm not kidding. Ben's looking at me like he's refusing to read this.
No, I'm thinking.
Oh, he's thinking, okay. Okay.
Wait, no.
What did that tree mean to Ben? Tell me what your words would be about your tree.
Without my tree?
About your tree.
About my tree. Let's see, well, when I was 6, it was probably a pecan tree, so it probably didn't work. And I hated it.
Oh.
But it was really big, and I wanted to climb it. Green in the spring.
Hated. That's interesting. Hated the tree. I've never had anybody say they hated a tree in class before. That's interesting.
Because pecans are sick, you hate it.
Because, pardon, what? No, because you have to pick up the pecan? Yeah, it's work. Heidi, tell me about your tree.
My tree is big, like climb it, swings in the tree, like playing outside in the yard, and lots of leaves. It's an oak tree.
Okay, you were playing outside. Did the tree have any relation to your play?
Well, it's in my backyard. Like the tree that I bought was in my backyard when I was
Okay. What was the tree when you were 6?
an oak tree.
An oak tree.
I don't know.
You just wrote that down on the board.
What?
You just wrote that down, that it was an oak tree.
It's an oak tree, yes. Okay, so it's just an oak tree. Emily, what was your tree?
Mine was a big weeping willow tree that me and my brothers used to play in. And it was fun and scary all at the same time. Because my older brother made me climb really high.
Oh.
Trying to think of the words.
What was it when you were climbing it? Was it just a tree you were climbing?
Yeah, it was a tree.
Was it a
Well, it was our fort.
Ah, it was a
To be
fort.
technical.
To be technical, that's exactly it. It was a fort, right?
Yes.
All right, okay.
And then Ivan blew it down so it wasn't very cool.
And then Ivan blew it down. Oh, my.
Sad day.
It was really sad.
Oh, I'll draw a second. Okay. Annabelle.
Well, mine is a giant.
Was it giant in terms of it was a giant or it was just giant big?
It was a giant.
It was a giant. Did you fight with it or kill it?
Well, yeah, the roots got in the way a lot. There were really big roots. Couldn't try to get around them.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. They had really long limbs.
Yeah? So it was like it was going to reach out and get you?
Yeah.
Did you personify the tree? I mean, did you actually think of it as a giant?
I mean, it was at my church, so yeah, me and my friends always tried to just see how many times you could run around it without tripping over the roots.
Sounds like a fun game.
Yeah.
Church. Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. What about Jennifer?
It was a black.
Who's up?
Oh, I'd say green, fluffy, look tall,
I said
leafy,
no, it's not.
and squirrel.
What was it? Was it just in the yard? Was there?
Like what kind of tree was I looking at?
No, what was it?
A tree.
I had a very weird childhood. Okay. Niece, I'm curious about trees from your childhood.
They're probably like lions or tigers.
It was a big tree? Okay.
The one I used to be around is a mango tree.
A mango tree. Okay. Shh.
So it's very big, very like he had fruit on it. So what we used to do it was the place where most kids were going running around or playing, and it was just fun. During when I was a kid, like the tree was so tall, we were thinking that if we could climb to the top, maybe we'd be able to talk to God or something like that. And he was the area where you can go sleep, you can go relax because of the wind and like the shadow it gives to you. When it's like raining outside, you can go. People say that it's bad to go under the tree when it's raining with lightning and everything, but sometimes we're just going there to stay. Just
Keep dry.
And we used to take our sandals to like throw them to the tree to get the mangoes. So it was fun.
You threw sandals?
Sandals, yeah. You use your sandals like a walker. So we saw when I was a kid, there were like a cartoon about a guy who it's like thousand, but it was a cartoon that the guy was grew up in the forest with wolf and all this stuff. I don't know the name, but it was just one that we made like weapons with the tree, with wood.
With the branches?
Yes. And we throw them and we go get the mangoes. Or sometimes like we say we want to see who's stronger or who's the more courageous. And some guys step up and they climb the tree, they go to the top and they're like, hey man, I'm at the top and you just see the brother. He was good.
Okay. And are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was gonna give, okay, never mind. I was gonna give you an idea of my tree, but.
Give me an idea of your tree now.
Okay. All right.
After that.
What was your tree?
Well, no, there was a tree in my front yard when I was growing up that got struck by lightning. And for me, it was just kind of like really mysterious because it grew back like that. It grew in the shape of a V and the bark healed over time. So it was just like, I don't know, for some reason, like I always had like this, like, I had this like really, really dark feeling about the tree because like, you know, it got struck by lightning and it didn't die for some reason. Didn't catch on fire. And it just grew back.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, a tree. Did you have a tree that was anything other than a tree?
Like, you mean what I thought of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like our fort, what we played in. But ours was this big magnolia tree in my grandparents' front yard.
Okay. So a big magnolia tree that was a fort. So we have two forts.
Mine didn't
And it had
have
a swing.
And what?
It had a swing.
And a swing. What was yours?
Well, I'm from Arizona, so we don't really have like big trees. We have like really like low growing like mesquite trees, and they're like really dangerous because they have like spikes on them, and like you couldn't like climb it. It wasn't fun to like hang out on. Yes.
Okay, then we have the eating tree. The enemy tree. Okay, now, the thing that I'm thinking about is, okay, you were thinking of it as something that you could climb and maybe talk to God, right? We have a couple of people in here who thought of their trees as a fort, right? Or it was some sort of playground equipment because there was a slide on it or you could climb it.
Whoa.
Right?
That'd be sweet.
Because you can
swing.
Like
swing.
Tarzan?
What did I say?
Slide.
Oh, sorry. No, not slide.
That'd be kinda cool,
Swing
though.
on it or
Like Tarzan where
Sorry,
you're sitting on
But I'm also thinking about, okay, when I was little, we had an apple tree in the backyard. It was a house because the branches came down so they kind of touched you could go under the branches and there was this kind of enclosed space under there that you had walls and then the branches up here with a roof and everything. So it was kind of a house. Or it could be a fort. You could sit up in the tree and throw, they were not very good at apples, so you could throw apples at people. So it could be a fort, it could be a house, it could be a multi-story house because you could it had nice, once and close to the trunk it had flat branches, so you could put boards across and so tree house kind of thing. But at the same time, everybody you had different images of what the tree was or what the tree meant, right? But you still all had trees. Some of them were mysterious. Some of them were a source of work, and you hated it. But or it's a giant. It's actually a giant with maybe big roots that are. Also, we had a tree that had a root that we were digging to China, and I mean now I know you can't dig through to China because that's not what's on the other side. But we were trying to dig to China, and we ran into one of the roots, and we thought it was the devil's arm, so we were going to kill the devil by chopping its arm off.
Wow.
But there are all these different meanings that we give to the trees, right? And if you're a kid, you can look at it and you say, that's a great house, or that's a great fort. Or if you go out here, whichever way it is now, go out here, there's a hill, right? And if there's a hill, that can make a nice little area for an amphitheater. You can have people sit on the hill and somebody standing on the top. If you look for, when you look for a place to have a picnic, you kind of find the spot that is the picnic. Now, did it have meaning before you saw it? Did the tree have meaning before? No, it was just a tree, right? It's just a wilderness. The meaning for Stevens, the meaning of the tree for Stevens is created in the mind. Just the same way that you created a giant or a ladder to heaven or scary stuff because it came back to life after it got struck by lightning. You create the meaning, and we each place the meaning on nature.
We did that with like fallen trees. We like my grandparents live on a lot of land. But if you went off into the woods, like to the side of her house, there's a place where two trees had apparently been cut down, and they were like side by side. So they looked like seats.
Yeah.
And then the other trees had kind of like collapsed and branches had fallen. So it was like already a fort, and it was all covered in moss.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I guess, nature's own fort.
It's like nature's own fort, but if you weren't there, it wouldn't have any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a slovenly wilderness, as much as you can get in somebody's yard, right? So there is no meaning to the wilderness. That's why it's called wild. It has not been tamed and ordered until the human mind imposes meaning upon it. The same way that the jar, it's just a dumb old jar, right, is in the middle of the wilderness, and before the jar's there, it's just a mess, it's wild. When the jar is placed there, it gives it a central focus, right? You've got some central focus, focal point. Now, Stevens is saying, this is Stevens, it's not necessarily me or anybody else, but Stevens then is saying, and the moderns are kind of saying, the source of meaning is in the mind of the individual. This is Stevens. Wallace Stevens. Okay? Now, you get this also in the idea of order at Key West. You also get this in the idea of order at Key West. Because, where else are you going to find meaning? If half of your family is gone because of the flu epidemic or the war or whatever, where are you going to find meaning? You have to find it within yourself. Now, that does not mean that Stevens is a complete idiot. He knows that if there's a tree there and he drives his car into it, you cannot think, I don't believe the tree exists. It's meaningless. There's no tree, and you can drive through it without being hurt. He's not denying physical reality. He's not that wacko, okay? So he believes that you will get hurt if you run smack dab into the tree. But he is saying the meaning is given by the individual. So I will see the tree and it'll have one meaning. Someone else will see it and it'll have totally different meaning. So the idea of order at Key West, the murmuring gets picked out, makes it hard for them to hear. Okay. She sang beyond the genius of the sea, the water never formed to mind or voice, like a body, holy body, fluttering its empty sleeves. Okay, I'm going to have to finish next time because I just realized I went 5 over. Okay. Keep going with this. I think it's Elliot next.
Those are cool trees, that's fun.
I love Stephen. Yeah, normally there. Okay, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Don't go away. Don't go away. It starts on 2075. It's by Elliot. I don't know if this is what's next on the syllabus or not, but it ought to be. It starts on 2075 and it goes through 2079. 2075 to 2079. Elliot. Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, 2079, no, 2075. 2075, page 2075, and it won't make sense either. It's modern poetry, you need to let go of the need to understand, but you need to experience it. Modern poetry is like watching MTV with sound off. Yes, is MTV still around?
Well, these days it doesn't really matter because they don't really play music.
Yeah, but not the way you think it is.
Really? Oh, is it worse?
MTV is not on. 18 and Pregnant is on Jersey Shore.
Oh, 16 and pregnant. Well,
Sorry.
this
I don't
is what
really
you
watch
can
that.
do for your homework. Read Prufrock, and then go find some non-bad music video, if there is such a thing, and turn the sound off. Watch the video and see if you can get the meaning without the words.
Oh.
I've never done it this way before,
That's
but it
kinda
really
cool.
is like just watch it without the sound and see what the images tell you.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a favorite song. I have raw.
Michael Jackson was probably the one person that could